Scottie Barnes is amazing, but how amazing is he in comparison to other past Raptors rookie greats? We discuss that and more on today's episode of the podcast with Amit Mann from Yahoo Sports Canada. We also will take a look at a pair of massive games against the Suns and Nuggets coming up on Friday and Saturday. Do the Raptors stand a chance? We will get to that with Amit as well coming up on today's episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks so much for being here.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1136 of Locked On Raptors for Friday, March the 11th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors, and you can subscribe to, follow, rate, review the podcast wherever you get your podcasts on the audio side of things. And for video, you can go to YouTube every single day. You get to see my mug talking Raps, so why not go hit the big red subscribe button over there. And as always, a big thank you for making us your first listen of the day. All right, on today's show, it's been a Scottie Barnes heavy week. He's had some big games. He won Rookie of the Month recently. We've been talking about that. And of course, we did the whole Rookie of the Year breakdown on Tuesday that a lot of Pistons fans found and got very mad about. Oh, just relax. It's fine. Cade's awesome. We said at the end of that show, Cade was going to be the best player of the class. So relax. Anyway, I'm not mad about the YouTube comments at all. We are going to continue, however, the Scottie Barnes talk on today's show with a wonderful guest who himself just did some Scottie Barnes content yesterday, breaking down his excellent game against the Spurs. It is from the Raptors Over Everything podcast and Yahoo Sports Canada, Amit Mann, who I'm always ready and excited because I know if the guest is into it by whether or not they dance to the music when I'm playing the music, and I can see you in the background bobbing along. You were bobbing along very aggressively, so this is going to be a good one, Amit. How's it going, man?
I'm an aggressive bobber. When I hear a good tune, I'm ready to go. Also, it's Friday. Like, why not, right? Let's get into it.
Yeah. Extreme Friday vibes going on here on your Friday episode. Scottie Barnes, a man, the vibes, speaking of which, you know them when it comes to Scottie Barnes. He is very good at basketball, of course. So far this season, just to kind of round out where he is, 15 points a game, 7.6 boards, 3.3 assists, 1.1 steals, 0.8 blocks, 49% from the floor, 31% from three, a true shooting percentage around 55 or so, reasonable efficiency, and he's just waving happily at the All-Star break and everything. It's a beautiful time to be beholding Scottie Barnes. We're going to dig in a second into some of the historical Raptors rookie seasons that he's kind of in the category of with the year he's put in so far. But Amit, I want to begin with, what are your thoughts on Scottie Barnes? I kind of like to get this impression from every new face on the podcast because everyone has their own appreciation of what Scottie Barnes does. What has your Scottie Barnes viewing experience been this season? How have you been taking it all in?
I think the most incredible part is how impactful he is in every part of basketball. Yeah. It's something that you can't really, it's kind of unheralded for a lot of rookies because they're usually so focused on a few aspects. Like you do your job, you do this part, you do that part, Cade, I guess an exception, and Evan Mobley, very, very, very good draft class. But he affects the game in so many ways. And he's one of the players, like similar to other players in Raptors rookie history, is that if they're not on the floor, the team is worse. And I think that is a huge, huge credit to all those players because that is a very difficult thing to do at 20, 21, 19, whatever the case is. And so that's probably the biggest thing that stands out to me is that he continues to find ways to impact the game in every way that he possibly could. And that's why Masai and Bobby loved him from the get-go, right? We're all saying, oh, Jalen sucks. They're like, no, this guy is unselfish and he loves winning and he fits our culture. And so we're going to draft him. And now we're all happy that they did.
Yeah, certainly. And I think for me, to kind of answer my own question, and I've answered this, in various forms of the podcast already in the past, but hey, not everybody listens every day. That's fine. I just love how moldable he seems. And it doesn't really seem to matter what the context of the team is, whether they're down guys for injury and need more from him as a creator and a self-reliant scorer type. Whether it's, okay, they're fully healthy and they need someone to kind of fill in the gaps as the five in their starting lineup, and he's doing the nasty, mean, gritty things in between, whether they need him to take a specific defensive assignment or they need him to, look at a matchup on the offensive end and kind of punish it like he did against the Spurs on Wednesday against all of their various undersized wings. It just, he seems to have no sort of limit as to what he'll take on. He'll have varying degrees of success with all this stuff, but the fact that they've been able to throw him out into basically every position and ask him to do different things over the course of the season, like, that's a lot for a rookie to take on. And the fact that he hasn't really had more than a couple of spells where it's looked a little overwhelming to him is pretty remarkable. So, I am curious what you think about this, Amit. Scottie Barnes is just, he's 20 years old. There's a lot to go here in terms of development. We don't really know where it's all going to go, what kind of development track he's going to go down, but the Raptors are going to have some say in that. I'm curious, like, what do you think the sort of role for Scottie Barnes, maybe not this season, because I think we kind of know this season he's going to be the guy who fills in the gaps when the starters aren't available. He's going to be that sort of glue guy that we talked about. But going forward, is there a role in particular you'd like to see him kind of project as? Is there a track of development you'd like to see him go down to work on a specific set of things to become X type of player? Or is that malleability kind of a feature and not a bug here, and you're not really worried about what the ultimate role is because he's going to impact the game in all sorts of ways regardless?
I think he actually wants that too. I don't think he wants to be just a scorer or just a rebounder or just a cutter or just a screener. He wants to do all of it. In a weird way, I kind of want him to be like latter years LeBron James, because LeBron kind of embraced the aspect where, all right, so like I've lost my quickness, but I also have this right here. I'm pointing to my brain because he has a very high basketball IQ and he knows how to use it. And so he does pretty much everything, right? He is a screener. He is a passer. He works in the post. He is a shooter. He does everything that a person could possibly do in the game of basketball to affect winning. And I think that's kind of what Scottie's kind of probably his comfort zone is that you don't want to put him in a box because he's too good at too many things. And like I said earlier on, Masai and Bobby loved that aspect of him, is that they loved that he could just influence the game in a lot of different ways. And not everyone can do that. But when you're 6'10" and growing seemingly and 235 pounds and you have a dribbling ability and you can run the floor, like, it'd be a shame just to put a ceiling or a box into someone who can do that. Like, look at Giannis right now, right?
Yeah.
He does virtually everything, but also at the same time, they had to like kind of pull him towards becoming a screener. He didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. He was very resistant to it. Scottie, with his unselfishness, he just wants to win games. And I hope, as he continues to progress in his NBA career, I hope that stays, is that he just becomes this person that is what he is now. He still wants to win games. He still wants to influence winning in any way he can. And he doesn't get that ego that a lot of star players have, because a lot of guys, yeah, they could, screen and stuff like that, but they're just like, nah, just give me the ball and get the hell out of the way. All right. I got this. But Scottie's not that. And I don't want him to lose that aspect because he's just too damn good.
Yeah, I am fully with you on that. I think for me, the dream with Scottie Barnes is that he's not a point guard or a forward or a center. He's a Scottie Barnes, and the context of the team can change around him depending on matchups, depending on what certain guys' skill sets are and things like that. Like, I just feel like he's a really interesting piece for the building of the team, right? We talk about like Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam. We kind of know where they slot in a typical depth chart or in a typical lineup, and you kind of fit the pieces around them. But with Scottie Barnes, it's a little bit more sort of like, all right, choose your own adventure. Like, what do you want to put around Scottie Barnes? Do you want him to be a center? Do you want him to play guard? Like, and how does that alter the way you build your team from there? Do you agree with that? Like, do you think that the team building process gets pretty intriguing here for the Raptors because of Scottie and the way he can kind of blend with a bunch of different skill sets? Or is there maybe, an inclination to maybe want to have, like a more traditional sort of team build around? Like, I don't know. It's a weird thing to kind of, contemplate, but, as far as team building goes, it does feel pretty interesting as to like how you can sort of maximize him. And I don't know what that means for the guys currently on the roster and how they fit. I think all of them fit with him quite well right now, but is like playing center alongside these types of guys the way you want to go long-term forward? Or is there a different sort of team building model that his skill set allows for, do you think?
And they got to make that decision kind of quickly. And I talked about this with Katie Hindu, who also appears on this podcast. She's very talented. Follow Katie on Twitter at whatevs. Is that they kind of have to make a decision, like maybe as soon as this offseason, what they're going to do. It depends on how they're viewing this upcoming season, because after next season, you got Gary and Fred VanVleet both with player options, and they will opt out because more money, right? So obviously they get a lot more expensive. They're already at like 112 million just going into next season. So long story short, money is going to become a problem, and they still have some deficiencies. We see the guards. The guard issue has been there from day one, and it continues to be there. They could use a center. Do they need a center? Do they need like a quality center? Like, do this need someone who is like a big body, a 7-footer who can kind of move around a little bit and isn't, you know, yeah, just has some mobility to him? Is that all they need? Like these are things that they got to decide. But looking at how Scottie is developing, just with with this post game, and he talked about this after that Spurs game. And granted, like you said, I mean, they are undersized, but he has been working on his post game. He's got a left hand now, right? And that he's been working on that throughout the season. And then they asked him, "Hey, can you shoot threes for us?" And earlier on the season, he was shooting threes, and the percentages aren't that great, but that's okay. But he's going to keep on working. And considering how much better he has gotten throughout this season, what do you think sophomore Scottie's going to be? And I'm saying all this because there's a lot of cooks on the Raptors right now, and I don't know if it best serves Scottie necessarily to be like this roaming offensive player, and he fills in the gaps and stuff like that. Maybe it's not even the best for the Raptors franchise, because he is a very difficult person to guard for a lot of teams, especially when you have a Pascal Siakam and a Fred VanVleet. And so do they got to make a decision between OG and Gary? I'm not saying that they have to. I'm just saying this is something that maybe they got to think about is, do you want to go with the same starting five next season when you have all these issues in the background, and, the free agency market isn't that great? Are you going to make a trade? That's, you could dramatically improve your team for next season, but is that something you want to do? They're all under contract, so there's no worries about that. But, what is the timeline for them trying to win a championship? It's not an easy answer.
It's not. I am on the side of, I don't think you necessarily have to make any of those big decisions this summer. Like, I think there's still time to kind of, marinate here. I know, and when it comes to like Fred, for example, you're going to extend him anyway, regardless of how Scottie develops. I think you want Fred around for the long haul. Gary becomes a pretty interesting one, and he's just obviously been so important because of the space he breathes into the offense. Even when he's cold, that space is so valuable just for all the other guys on the team who really take advantage of space quite well. I'm fine if they roll into next season with the sort of similar setup, and we actually get to see, more than 20 games of the five main guys playing together. Because, my stance on this team all season long has been, it ain't the starters that's the problem. It's the bench. It's the lack of shooting and depth in the back part of the reserve crew. And the starters typically fare quite well. Their overall numbers as a lineup are still sort of right around like neutral, but we've seen them in really big moments kind of come together, crunch time, things like that, really looking like a super potent five. And every time I look at Scottie Barnes, I'm like, that dude's like 7 feet tall. He's enormous. Maybe he's just a center. Like, maybe that's just the way you go forward, and you just accept, hey, we're not going to be super bruising, but we have a guy who's as tall or as large as most other centers in the NBA, and he also can go and post anybody up that he wants, and he can also handle the ball. Maybe that's a totally fine thing to have, and maybe we just haven't really seen the full potential of that because he's in his rookie season and he's learning the intricacies of the position. Again, I don't want to box him into a corner and say, you're just a center, Scottie, go be a five. But as far as next season goes, I don't mind seeing a little bit more of the concept that's been tested so far this season, and for the most part has had pretty good results. It's just been circumstance for the team and health and injury and all this stuff that's kind of made things a little bit more of a slog. But I made this point in yesterday's podcast. I think it's totally fine that there's not like a clear number one within the Raptors offense, that Scottie's not getting a 27% usage, because part of the whole deal with this Raptors team at full health is anyone can mess you up at any given time. And maybe no one there is like a top 10 level talent, but all of them are top 50-ish players and can give you some problems if the ball swings to them, against a compromised defense or whatever. So really interesting stuff. He's a fascinating player to kind of theorize what the team's going to look like around going forward. We're going to continue on in just a sec, Amit, and we're going to talk about where Scottie's rookie season falls among all-time Raptors rookie seasons. It's been, a while, I think, since we saw a rookie have a year like this in Toronto. They obviously have had some great ones in the past. We'll get to those in just a second. But first, want to tell you about our friends over at Bet Online. It's that time of year again, as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season, so you're never making a bet without being fully informed on what you're betting on. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games as well. Head to the website today or use your mobile device and learn more about the trends and the action. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Go check them out. And we continue on here with your first listen of the day with Amit Mann of Yahoo Sports Canada. Let's talk Raptors historical context of rookie seasons. That was a clunky way to put it. Look, there have been some great rookie seasons in the past, rookie of the year winning seasons in the past, runner-up rookie of the year seasons in the past. Shout out Charlie V. I personally wasn't really sentient for Damon Stoudamire's rookie of the year season or Vince Carter's. I kind of got in like year 2, 3 of Vince, and that's really where kind of my fandom took hold. Amit, I'm curious, were you like sort of around and following the team closely for those Damon and Vince years, #1? And if so, can you comment on how they kind of stack up to this with Scottie? And if not, just speak to, where you think this kind of slots in among your favorite Raps rookie seasons.
I was just out of diapers for both of those guys. Well, not so much VC. That's 98,
right.
99. So a bit of a different story. But for Damon, 95, 96. Yeah, I was just out for a couple of years. So I'm pretty much going off of highlights for the most part, but that doesn't mean that those highlights aren't incredible. And you look at the numbers that those two did, and it is ridiculous. Even like Damon Stoudamire, I'm not sure if people realize this, but he averaged 40 minutes a game in his rookie season. That is ridiculous. Like, that is unheard of. That is Nick Nurse-esque, right? Like, who's pushing their rookie player like that? And also, I'm asking you, Sean, do you know who Alvin Robertson is?
Of course I know. It's the man who scored 32 points or something in the first ever game for the team.
Oh, well, there you go. So you were one person who does, but I had no idea who he was. And he started 69 games for that team. Like, that wasn't a good team. That was an expansion franchise. Like, my goodness. All right. That was not a quality group of players. And he put up ridiculous numbers. And you look at like some of and I'm just going off highlights. So like, it is what it is, but that is no rookie. Okay. Like, the way that he was able to shift gears and, screen navigate and screen manipulate, and the change of paces, like, he was called Mighty Mouse for a reason. He was a unbelievable talent. Even Kyle Lowry talked about, like, he was asked when he joined the Heat, he's like, who's the greatest Raptor of all time? And he almost said Dame, but then he ended up saying Alvin Williams because he's Alvin Williams.
Villanova, kiss acid.
Yeah, all that stuff, man, all that stuff. But it's very rare to find a player in the rookie year have the control of the game the way that Damon Stoudamire did. And again, I'm just going off highlights, but they're that incredible. It's like, you just look at like a 5-minute clip, you're like, yeah, this is not a rookie player. This is like a 5-year vet. And granted, that was some of his best years of his NBA career. But at the same time, like, it doesn't, dismiss what he did against, when he was a focal point of the offense. And he's also 5'10". He may have been 5'9" at that time. Like, I don't know, like, he was an unbelievable talent. Right? And I have to say that he's probably one of the best. And then, Vince Carter, like, you can wrap up Vince Carter if you'd like, because there haven't been many rookies like him. Wow.
No, I made the point on my other podcast, Basketball with Katie Heindel, a couple weeks ago, last week, that like what we're seeing with Ja Morant is kind of the closest thing we've seen to Vince Carter's rise, I think, right? Like, just so electrifying. Everybody who even is like a casual knows who he is tuning into the games. Like, he's winning freaking all-star votes, like titles and everything like that. Just like that, I think, is kind of the closest thing to Ja that we've seen is early Vince. And again, I wasn't fully sentient for the first couple of years. It was kind of like 99, 2000 that I really latched on. But even then, like, it was just completely overwhelming. And yeah, like, if you go back and look at the numbers, Damon's first season with the Raptors, 70 games played, as you mentioned, 41 minutes a night, 19 points, 9.3 assists, 4 boards. He took 4.8 threes a game and shot 39.5%. Like, that is not 95, 96 stuff at all.
No, sir.
Really, really all-encompassing point guard play in that season from Damon. Vince in his rookie year, 18.3 points, 5.7 boards, 3 assists, 1.1 steals and 1.5 blocks. Just ridiculous. Only played 50 games. It was the lockout shortened season, but just like that, it gave way to, of course, like a 2 or 3 year run where he was one of the better players in the NBA, like kind of in that post Jordan window where it was like Iverson and early Duncan days and like the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. And like Vince was right there among like the main characters of the league at the time. So I'd probably say those two, like you'd say for sure, were better than Scottie's. After that, though, man, I'm having a hard time coming up with a better rookie season than what Scottie Barnes is doing right now for the Raptors. You know, if you go back through Chris Bosh took a couple years for him to really kind of gain a hold. He averaged in his first season, he was at only, he played 33 and a half minutes a game, but like 12 points a game, 7 boards, 1 assist, like good, but not amazing. Bargnani kind of had a sneakily useful rookie year, that 2006-07 year where Sam Mitchell wins Coach of the Year. They're third in the East. Comes off the bench for all but 2 games, averages 11.6 though, 4 boards, shoots 37% from 3 on 4.1 attempts, like among the better seasons from Bargs. But then you're kind of looking at Charlie Villanueva as like the only other real contender here. Am I missing somebody?
No, I was looking at it just like you were last night, just like kind of looking around. What were some really notable rookie years? And a lot of these guys, like a DeMar, a T-Mac, they didn't have that role in their first season with the Raptors. Norm Powell, 15 minutes. I mean, all 3 of those guys kind of played similar amounts of minutes per game, between 15 and 20 or so. JV, he was a bit up and down. He had a good rookie season. I mean, 9 points, 6 rebounds in 24 minutes. Not a bad rookie year, but that's also 9 points and 6 rebounds. And we're talking about players who average like close to 20 and 10 in some cases. And Chris Bosh, I mean, I love watching him in his rookie year. Like that was back then when he loved dunking on people, and that was really cool. You know, he loved being that guy who's like Theo Ratliff, and just go down the list. Like he had that like drop step dunk that he just did over and over and over, and it was really hard to stop. And he had, like, as the season went on in that year, he really kind of found his stride. There were more like 15 and 10s and 20 and 8s and stuff like that. Yeah. And you could see like how versatile he was going to be in his NBA career. And unfortunately, it was kind of cut short. A sneaky thing about Chris Bosh is that I kind of forgot that he spent his peak years in Miami, right? Like his best years of his NBA career were spent in Miami when he was like third fiddle. I'm not sure like how would he be evaluated if he was in a different franchise where he was more of a number one option. It's kind of a unfortunate thing that happened with him at 31. He had to retire. But Marcus Camby is the only other person that came to mind. And the players that we're talking about,
good pull.
Dame, Vince, Scottie, and Marcus Camby, all players that were averaging around like 30 minutes a game, right? So I think that's one other echelon that you got to put a rookie in, that when they're playing that many minutes, that means that they're that important to their team. And he was at 14 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. He had a steal. He was all rookie first team. He won 1 rookie of the month. So he was, pretty good. But all the guys we're talking about, they were 22 years old. How do we factor that in? And Scottie is 20 years old. Although he has the body of like a 28-year-old, but he is actually 20 years old. And that cannot be forgotten, that he's very, very early in this process, but his brain is 28.
So, he's like, I think my favorite thing about Scottie Barnes right now is watching how much smarter he is than everybody else he's trying to pass to. And they're all like not even realizing the passes are coming in hot. Like, that's something he's got to adjust to, but it's great. Like you rattled off the list there. Camby's a really good pull. That's an insanely good rookie season, like nearly 15, 6, and like more blocks than assists, which is hilarious because he had 1.5 assists. But I guess the thing to consider here is that most of these rookie seasons came for completely ass teams, right? Like the expansion Raptors, no good. What did they win? Like 23 games or something like that. The 99 Raptors, not a very good team. The Charlie V team, not very good either. The, what was it? 03-04 was his first season. No, his first season was 05-06, the year before Barks came in. That was a really bad team. That was the Mike James team, if I recall. Not a good team in any way.
Shout out Mike James.
I mean, putting the ball in the hole at an incredible rate. We love it. But again, all these guys outside of Bargnani, who again is a bench player on that 06-07 team, isn't even like a top 3 European guy off of that team. It probably doesn't stack up. The only other one that came to mind, and it's a little more modest in terms of numbers, but rookie year OG Anunoby was maybe the best defensive player on a team that won 59 games. That counts for something. Like he got the starting job pretty early on into the year and kind of ran with it. what say you as OG as like one of like these sort of echelon up top tier rookie seasons? It was super low. He had like an 8% usage or something crazy like that. But like there's got to be something there, right? To sort of throw him into this group, considering he did it for a team that won more games than any Raptors team has ever won.
It's a weird thing to think about, right? Like, how do you evaluate a rookie season? Is it based on like their, personal production, or based on their impact on winning? Because, when it comes to Scottie Barnes, like you probably say, okay, well, Scottie, I mean, look at the Raptors, like look how good he is. Like probably he's way up there. But you put Scottie on like a crappy team, and it's like a team that's lottery bound, right? His numbers are going to be a lot better because he's going to shoot more. He's going to have the ball in his hands more. He's going to be, right now he's like 15-7. You said, right? 15-7 or so. Yeah, those are probably going to balloon a little bit because he's going to be shooting more. He'll have the ball in his hands more. And then we're going to be like, oh my God, like look at his season though. But then also he's on a team that won 45 games or 40 or whatever. Like, so tough thing to kind of, I guess I would put him in the same category as Marcus Camby, right? Because I do think that Scottie and VC and Dame are kind of in their own category. And then one underneath would be probably Marcus Camby and I guess OG Anunoby. And you put Chris Bosh in there too. Players that had exceptional seasons, just maybe not as good as those other three because of the things I've kind of talked about, Dame just being like 5'10" and taking over the league, Vince Carter being must-watch TV. Like it's kind of one of those things where like you have a player who's in Toronto and people in the States are like, I have to watch this kid play basketball. He was that guy, right? And that can't be dismissed. And the impact that he had on the Raptors franchise, are they still here? Are they extinct if he wasn't a Raptor for a little while? Like that, I mean, it's kind of a low-key thing to think about, but it is a factor for me. And then Scottie, I mean, geez, 20 years old and he's doing all this. He's going to be the best player of all these guys that we're talking about. And it's an interesting question to like really think about, where will he be in 5 years? Like what's Scottie Barnes going to be? The comparison is a Giannis, but I think he's going to be better than Giannis because he already, categorically, player to player at 20 years old, he already is. So you would think that he's going to continue to progress and get to new heights with his relentless work ethic. So fun times to be a Raptor fan.
The future comp thing is, but man, okay. The Raptors just won a title still like less than 3 years ago. I don't know why I looked at my watch to tell that. It's okay. We're still in the honeymoon phase here. It's fine. Last year sucked. Everything else other than last year for the last 10 years has been awesome. So being a Raptors fan has been a pretty, I think, rewarding thing over the last 10 years or so. As far as like the future comps, I mean, I always struggle with this. I don't know. Like Giannis is maybe the best player in the world. And I think it's a lot to heap on Scottie to say, oh, just go become the best player in the world. No problem. I think, we do get caught in the trap sometimes of just assuming progression is linear and that because you start at point A, it means you're going to, end at a higher point than with the guy who started at point A a little bit lower. I'll wait and see on that. I also don't know if he has like the same sort of bruising physicality that Giannis has, even though I know he's insanely strong and beefy, but he seems like a little bit more of like a finesse type player. And so I wonder if there's like a hybrid of, more sort of like limber wing type, like a Jason Tatum, more of and you get like the Giannis elements as well. I saw someone say that he's going to be like the next Jokic, which is hilarious and would be cool. I think Jokic is like his own thing, but I don't think we need to, again, going back to the original point of don't pencil him into a position to worry about going forward. He doesn't have to be Giannis or Jokic. He's Scottie Barnes, which is pretty damn cool on its own. Any last parting shots on Scottie before we take a quick break and come back and tee up Raptors Suns and Raptors Nuggets?
If I have a third child, his name will be Scottie Barnes, a guy or girl.
That's funny. If I ever get a dog, I'm going to name it Beans.
Nice.
In Scottie's honor. Let's continue on here. We're going to get to Raptors Suns, Raptors Nuggets in just one sec. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, making the best tasting protein bars you can find anywhere. I'm telling you, I don't really like protein bars. I find them usually quite gritty and nasty and not very pleasant to eat. They're more just like fuel. They feel like it's the future and you're just eating like condensed energy so you can survive the climate wars. Well, that's not the case with Built Bar. It feels like I'm just having a nice, delicious, light snack and it is making me feel like I'm being indulgent. It's wonderful. wonderful, wonderful little trick that plays on your brain. Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein in your standard bar. Compare that to your typical candy bar that's going to have at least 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar. That is so much sugar, plus dozens of net carbs, and you don't want to be doing that all the time to yourself. Once in a while, sure, indulge, but you can't be doing it every night. You can't be snacking late at night every single time and hoping to sort of come out feeling better the next day. So Built Bar is the way to help scratch that itch without giving you all the bad stuff that scratching the itch tends to come with. Anyway, lots of great flavors for you to check out. Mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream is a limited time flavor right now. Go check it out. They got limited time flavors all the time on the site, and they have a taste and a flavor for everybody, whether you have a nut allergy, whether you're keto, all of that stuff is covered as well. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, we round out today's episode of the show with Amit Mann from Yahoo Sports Canada. Raptors, Suns, Friday night. The Suns are a steamrolling ball of fury. They're basically like the war rig from Mad Max Fury Road. Just mowing people down all the way through the season, even without Chris Paul, even without Devin Booker. He's back now, by the way, so that makes tomorrow night quite difficult, or tonight, I guess. It's Friday. What day is it? I never know. But yeah, Raptors, Suns, let's start there. Any hopes for the Raptors in this one? I mean, if Fred VanVleet's around, I think there's certainly a better chance they can give them some trouble. OG would be really valuable in this game as just an option to throw on Devin Booker. It sucks that he's not there. Thoughts on Raptors, Suns tonight? Without Chris Paul, but still, the Suns are just so damn good.
Yeah, I guess expectations would be that I wanted to see a similar effort to that Cavs game. Granted, the Raptors lost that game, but you could argue in that Spurs game, they were a bit up and down. They kind of lost their mojo in that second quarter, and I guess predominantly because the bench sort of lost their mojo, although they played pretty well in the second half. But I would like to see a consistent 48 minutes. How about that for a cliche? That would be a really good thing to see, because this is a challenging team, the Phoenix Suns. Like, they have a lot of off-ball movement. They are a team that does play 48 minutes, and they got a lot of size. I'm curious, how they're going to use DeAndre Ayton against the Raptors, because that's where the size issues that the Raptors have. Granted, they're big, but at the center position, not so much. Could become an issue for them. And it's little things like that, because I don't have great hopes for this game. I mean, the line is -5. We'll see how it goes. The Raptors could certainly hold it to around there, but they got to play that full game. And Fred VanVleet looked great against the Spurs. That was the most encouraging thing, other than Scottie Barnes, taking over the second half, is that he looked very mobile, very limber. He looked really spry, and his lateral movement was back to where it probably should be, which was the best thing to see. So that's my takeaway, is that Fred's healthy. That's a good thing. And just go out there and try really hard and focus for 48 minutes against the Phoenix Suns.
Another big injury note for the Suns is Cam Johnson's out, and Cam Johnson's been playing out of his mind lately. He had 38 points a few nights ago. That's a big one as well, and will hopefully limit the damage done by not having OG, because that's one less guy that you have to worry about a wing defender to throw to. So, I'm fascinated. Who do you think they throw on Booker? I can't even recall back. I'm assuming it was OG for the most part in the first game they played against them, where they did play the Suns quite tight in Toronto, with no fans in the building. It can't be Fred, I would think. Like, he's a little too small. He's just going to get shot over. Like, do you try to throw Scottie on him and just see, does it work? Do you have Gary Trent harass him and potentially foul him 5 times in the first quarter? Like, what's your approach for Devin Booker, do you think, in this one?
Yeah, I looked back at that game too, and it was a lot of OG Anunoby, and OG historically has guarded Devin pretty well. So that's, as you talked about, big loss for this particular game. OG's a loss for every single game, but this one in particular, especially even tomorrow too, as we're going to talk about with the Denver Nuggets. Huge loss. OG Anunoby, please come back soon. Hopefully your finger is just fine. I think it's going to be a combination of a few different players. They're probably going to throw Scottie at him for a little bit, but that's going to be, do you have a Precious Achiuwa on the court at the same time? Kem Birch, how is he doing? How's his tooth? They're going to probably need a little bit more typical center play in this game, because over the past few games with Chris Paul out, they really are using DeAndre Ayton more as a feature part of their offense, and he's embracing it. He's rolling with it. And, campaign, like, give him credit. He's made himself an NBA player, and he's playing pretty good basketball. I picked him up on my fantasy team. He's doing really good things for me. He's getting 11 and 10 for you, and he's going to be a real pest for Fred VanVleet. So, yeah, I would expect a lot more center play from the Raptors. Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa, we're going to see a lot more center play from those guys. And then they're probably going to need a little bit of Yuta Watanabe, I would think, because as those guys kind of go through their fouls, which will inevitably happen, I could see Yuta maybe getting a shot tonight.
Yeah, that's not a bad call. I think, it's tricky, right? They're such a heavy pick and roll team. And I wonder if maybe the way to try to do this, I wonder if this is like a heavy Precious game. So it feels to me like the best shot you have against Ayton strength-wise, but maybe you can also switch stuff with him. I know they don't switch a ton, but maybe this is a game where you can try to do that because you have Precious, who I think can guard in space against a guy like Booker. Obviously, to be a huge test for him. He's not asked to do stuff like that all the time, but he's really good with his feet on the perimeter. And maybe that's the way you go here. And maybe you throw Scottie or something as the primary on Booker to begin with. So you can switch those actions, and then Scottie ends up on Ayton, and you're okay, I suppose, with that in terms of size. You're probably going to have to send doubles Ayton's way and dare him to pass. It's just, boy, the Suns have a lot of guys who can knock down threes on the swing. So yeah, it's gonna be tricky, man. The Suns are really, really freaking good. I think they're gonna win the title. But I think the Raptors have some interesting stuff they can throw at him. Is that a hot take? They're first in the league by 10 games. They're amazing. I mean, like they're gonna win the title to me.
No, for sure, they do. I guess I got a sneaky hope that the LA Clippers get healthy and Kawhi starts coming back.
That's not happening, man. It's
a lot
but
he's
to ask too.
It is, but they're a pretty good team without him as well. And if Paul George is Paul George, he's doing his things. And who knows, it would be a real unfortunate scenario if Kawhi misses this entire year, because you add him, even 50% of Kawhi, you got a pretty damn good team there, a team that could possibly win an NBA championship because they're that good. They're that deep. But yeah, with the Suns and with the Raptors game, I feel like there should be a lot of typical switching from the Raptors on defense, and you kind of just live with is Cam Payne and Devin Booker going to make that entry pass to DeAndre Ayton over the top? I'm not sure. I want to see them do it. Chris Paul will, right? He'll do it. Yeah. But I would like to see them challenge those guys to make that particular pass and just live with the switches. And if Devin Booker goes off for 40 and you're playing good defense, then hey, tip your hat. But yeah. Kind of simplify things a little bit. The Raptors tend to be really aggressive sometimes, but then sometimes they're not. And that's kind of when I find that they're really good, is that they're just letting their length take over and they're not over pressuring, because a team like the Phoenix Suns will kill you when you do that.
Yeah, and then quickly on the Sunday game against the Denver Nuggets, of course, Raptors played a really good game. Probably the last great effort from the Raptors, honestly, was against the Nuggets just before the All-Star break. They lose that at the buzzer with the block by Jokic on OG. It was an amazing Siakam game. What was he, 35, 10, and 7 in that one? Obviously, Jokic was incredible too. They don't have Will Barton, it looks like, for that game, which is a big loss because he was, I thought, really instrumental in that game against the Nuggets back a few weeks ago. And he's really their only rim pressure threat on that entire team. And so I wonder if maybe that's a way to kind of steal one. Second night of the back-to-back at altitude is never easy. I would imagine that's going to be a loss. And if the Raptors are going to win one, it's probably going to have to be tonight against the Suns. But quick thoughts on Raptors Nuggets. I know we've recently seen it, so maybe there's not a whole lot to dig into, but quick thoughts on, can the Raptors pull this one out? How will they do it?
Man, these games are so important, and this is the worst time for one of these road trips. But
after that, it's home free. Literally, they're home for the last 8 of 10 games or something crazy like that. They're really home heavy after this trip. Finally. Yeah,
it'll be needed. Hopefully, they can make a play for that top 6. But for that game, I mean, you kind of have to they let Jokic do Jokic things in that game. I think he had 35 or something like that, or 30, because they just wanted to negate his passing ability. But at the same time, he did kill them badly. So, but they didn't really use a lot of their centers, atypical centers during that game, because I think they just wanted to roll with Scottie Barnes, and Scottie got in foul trouble early. And also, I mean, no OG Anunoby, so I think they're going to have to use some of their other players anyways. And it's some of those little things. You just have to try and negate Jokic's passing. And as you said, kind of similar to what actually the Brooklyn Nets did to Embiid yesterday, is that you just kind of, challenge those other players to make plays.
Yeah.
And they just kind of loaded up on Joel Embiid. They showed a lot of bodies to him. And granted, Jokic is a much better passer than Joel Embiid, but make those
They
other
got worse
players
shooters, though. They got much worse shooters.
They do. Yeah. And Will Barton, like you said, that is a factor because he's kind of like a do-it-all kind of guy. He can cut, he can hit shots, and he was a big factor in that win that they had the other day. So I think you just have to let those other players, challenge one of them to go off. That's kind of the thing.
Totally. Yeah, not having OG, he's kind of been their best Jokic foil the last couple of years here, so that's again a big one. Maybe there's a surprise return. Who knows? He's on the trip. Maybe he gets. I think it'll be still a little out from the 2-week window, so I would bet against it. But hey, we never know. The Raptors are weird about injuries all the time. Anything could happen. Amit, thank you so much for jumping on the pod, man. It was great to have you. Anything the good people out there should know about that you would like to plug for them now?
Not much, man. Just follow Raptors Over Everything. Got a few different podcasts happening from different hosts. Myself, Aman. We recently partnered with Samson Folk. I'm sure you guys all know him. Doing some video breakdowns.
That guy.
Yeah, man. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you'd like, and also, follow Locked On Raptors because Sean's doing great work.
Oh, well, thank you, man. It's much appreciated. Yeah, listen to Amit. Go subscribe on your favorite podcast apps. It's free to go and do so. Also on YouTube, please hit the big red subscribe button. We're closing in on 1,700 subs. Let's go do that. It's nice. It makes me feel good. Help me feel good about myself, please. So go sub over there. And yeah, thank you as always for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Go make your second listen, Locked On NBA, as the guys over there every single night are breaking down the games. It's a new crew each of the 5 days of the week, so you don't get sick of any one voice like our pal Nick Angstadt. That guy, you don't want 5 days of Nick. 1 day of Nick is a perfect amount of Nick, and I'm speaking as someone who talks to Nick every day for work. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you, as always. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Enjoy the back-to-back Friday, Saturday. See ya.